cold as a razor blade.
Hello, and we are back for another episode of The Snake Pit. And of course, I could never do it. I would never want to do it without the man himself, WWE Hall of Famer, master of the DDT, inventor of the DDT, Jake the Snake Roberts. Jake, what's going on, dude?
Oh, man. Just enjoying the snow that we got here in lovely Georgia.
I forgot you guys got snow down there.
Yeah, we got 3 inches, which wasn't bad.
3? Okay, not horrible, but man, pretty unusual down there, right?
Yeah, ice. That's the bad part. It just turns to ice.
Oh, brutal. Now, you have a garage, right? You're not out there scraping off your car?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, you do have a garage?
Yeah, I got a garage, but all the cars won't fit in there.
Oh, no. So you will be out there with a nice scraper.
I might or to melt.
Okay. When's the last time you had to use one of those gimmicks?
It's been a long time. Probably when I was in Calgary.
That long?
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Unbelievable. You moved away, but Calgary's come to you now.
Yeah.
Well, up here in Pennsylvania, I think with the wind chill, there's going to be a low of negative 18 degrees, Jake.
Let's enjoy it.
Oh, man, I'm just keeping my punk ass inside. My furnace is back there running overtime, so I'm sure people will hear it during this. But let's talk about sunny Florida, Jake. That's our topic again today. We are returning to our discussion of your time in Florida Championship Wrestling during 1982. Just want to give a quick recap. As a reminder, during the October show, we discussed how Kevin Sullivan turned on Barry Windham en route to winning the Florida Heavyweight title, following what looked like an inadvertent low blow at about the 30-minute mark of the match. Sullivan took advantage of a hurt Windham and hit him with the knee for the title. Gordon Solie and Mike Graham confront Sullivan after the match. Sullivan hits Graham in the head with the belt. He busts him open, and Graham vows to get revenge at the end of the match. So you guys are on your way to becoming apparent devil worshippers there in Florida, which is a wild angle. Jake, Andrew, our research guy, brought up an interesting point in the notes, and it's something I didn't even think about, and we've definitely got to expand on it a little bit. Was the use of blood fairly acceptable in Florida at this time?
Yes.
Okay. And I know that because I know that Dusty Rhodes was getting color a lot. But I ask because, as a reminder for listeners, this is the early 80s. And the AIDS epidemic really just kicked off in a big way the year prior. The CDC put out this big thing about it. It was really, really big news. And you've got guys bleeding on each other in professional wrestling. Jake, were there any procedures in place in wrestling when it came to getting color?
Yeah, right.
It was just a free-for-all?
Go long and go deep.
Promoters didn't care. They didn't care if they were going to be liable.
No, they didn't give a shit.
That is crazy. Now, what were your personal feelings on the matter? Again, as a reminder, wrestlers have a reputation for going out after shows. A lot of them are going out meeting girls, and it's a different girl, a different town type scenario. Were you nervous about being in the ring with somebody when they're getting color?
No, not really.
Why not?
Because I was young and stupid.
Okay. So you just weren't even thinking about the idea that these guys might be sleeping around.
Of course not.
Hindsight, would you go back and do it again?
Sure.
Now, from a business standpoint, we know that blood was often the signature of a hot moment or a feud. I mentioned how Dusty Rhodes was using it a lot. Did Florida protect the use of blood, or were they kind of using it willy-nilly back in these days?
Every night.
Every night. I know that you're a big psychology guy, Jake. What are your thoughts on using blood every night?
I like it.
You don't mind?
No.
How much is too much?
When they start sewing you up, it's too much.
What about from the like the show perspective? Like, when is it overboard as far as the amount of color that people are getting on these shows?
I think they should use it in the main event.
Main event only.
Yeah.
Well, as we mentioned last time, this is month 3 into this run for you, and you've been elevated even further up with the Sullivan turn. You and Barry have been working one hell of a run together up to this point, but now we're getting to see some stars like Dusty and Sullivan and whatnot get involved. With that in mind, can you reflect on the position you were in just 90 days into this run, being involved in the big storyline at the time?
Oh man, everything was coming up roses for me, man. Working with Barry was such a pleasure. I mean, we went out and tore the house down, man, every night. You know, we were doing 30, 35 minutes a night and just having a great time doing it, an unbelievable time doing it. And probably some of the better matches I've had in my career were with Barry Windham.
Folks, if you haven't seen some of Jake's Florida stuff, definitely go out of your way to check it out, because I would agree with that. The stuff that you and Barry Windham were doing during this time was great. You guys had been tag team partners just whatever a year prior in the Mid Atlantic territory, so you knew each other well. Both second generation guys. It was quite a spectacle, huh?
Yep.
Being that you're involved in this kind of main event storyline here in the territory, did it change your workload now that you're on the upper end of the card?
Oh yeah.
How so?
It got easier.
Easier?
Yeah. It's much easier to work a main event match than it is a first match.
Why is that?
Well, because if you're working in the main event, people seem to know what the angle is and what the ins and outs are. They know that there's a reason that you guys are fighting and they're with it, you know.
As opposed,
if the fans are with it, it's much better. It's much easier to get the fans going if they're with it, and than it is to go out on the first match and start cold.
so when you're starting cold, you're trying to get an angle over. If you're main event, the angle's over.
It's already there.
I gotcha. Okay. Jake, you're working with some heavy hitters and guys who've been in wrestling for a long time. And again, you are the new kid in town. But that being said, you're not some rookie in the business either. I say all that to ask, were you given the opportunity to help lay out matches or creative, or were you just listening and executing at this point?
We laid out our own stuff.
Okay.
Barry and I did.
What about when you didn't get involved with guys like Dusty and Sullivan all of a sudden working tag matches and whatnot?
Yeah.
You'd have input still?
Yeah, we had input, but we'd have to follow them.
Okay, so it's like you'd put your 2 cents in, but then whatever they say just goes.
Yeah.
How long were you into your career before you started feeling comfortable and confident enough to begin expressing your opinions and saying, "I think we need to do this in this match"?
Oh, that happened fairly early.
Really?
Yeah. I'd say when I was in Calgary.
You did become a main eventer in Calgary.
Yeah.
So once you find yourself in that position on the card, all of a sudden you're like, "Well, I have the right then now to start saying what I think about these matches."
Yeah. Why not?
Were you ever a squeaky wheel guy when it came to creative, or was it just, nope, just do whatever?
I wasn't a squeaky wheel guy. I was a guy that wanted to get everything right,
Okay.
you know, and if that meant sacrificing myself, that's what I did.
What's the right approach when you're talking to a promoter about creative and you want to change the promoter's mind? Is there some particular way to do it the right way?
Jesus, I don't know. I don't think I ever did it the right way.
Something you never quite figured out.
No, I missed that boat.
Now, what about, this is another thing that really interests me. What about if you're in a match with somebody and they're like, "Hey man, I want to hit a fucking pile driver from the top rope to the outside," or whatever crazy spot that you don't
Yeah.
want to take. Whenever you hear a crazy spot that you don't want to take, how do you politely tell your opponent, "I don't want to do that"?
Get fucked.
All right, I'm gonna write this down and start saying that to folks.
It works.
It works. I know that you want to do the spot tonight, but what if you just get fucked, dude?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give it a try. Thank you, Jake.
No problem.
As we discussed last time, the back half of October 1982 saw you and Sullivan wrestling tag matches against Dusty and his allies. Those allies included Magnum TA, Barry Windham, Butch Reed, Mike Graham, and B. Brian Blair. November is going to kick off much the same way as you and Sullivan will team together to take on different pairings with Dusty and his crew. So it's like this rotating cast of characters with the American Dream. Jake, on the back half of this episode, I'm going to include a little bonus for our listeners. Tomorrow, as we're recording this, I'm talking to Brian Blair, and I plan to ask him about his days in Florida with you. You did bring up a really great story about a rib on Brian and Magnum. And according to my research, it looks like that took place this month. It would be November 1982 in Fort Lauderdale. Does that ring a bell for you?
Sunrise Theater.
That was it. Exactly. The match ended in a draw, and I assume that's because they were beating the shit out of your partner and you left.
Yeah, I was laughing behind the curtain.
Go back into the archives and listen to that story, guys, because it is incredible. In a short time, Brian is going to be in the WWF with you as one of the Killer Bees. Jake, overall, what can you tell us about Brian and his work?
He was a great workman, man. He knew how to do everything. He was always at the right time. His timing was good. He never quite got the opportunity that I think that he should have, but there's a lot of people that went through that. I actually liked the Killer Bees. I thought it was a pretty good gimmick.
I thought it was kind of cool too, with like the masks and whatnot.
Yeah, I thought it was good, but they never got the push.
Yeah, it was a unique gimmick. I'm not really sure why it didn't work out, but to your point, like every time I see a match of his, it's like he's not doing anything wrong. He looks good. Like, what's the issue?
Yeah, looks good, got good fire, everything's there.
Interesting. Though he does have a reputation for being a legitimate tough guy, and there's even a story out there about him brawling with Matt Bourne and biting off Matt Bourne's lower lip. Have you ever heard that one?
No.
Apparently it was a fight. They were in like a hotel bar. I don't know what they got pissed off at each other about, but according to eyewitnesses who were there, this fight went for like 15 minutes. And folks, if you've never been in an actual street fight, they last 30 seconds to 1 minute usually.
Yeah.
They went for 15 minutes just fucking brawling all over the building, apparently. And I guess it ended when Bourne got his lower lip bitten off. So, holy shit. Why is biting people such a thing in wrestling bar fights, Jake?
Well, you got to do what you got to do, man. Good for him for doing it.
Did you ever bite a motherfucker in a fight?
No, I haven't yet.
Don't piss with Jake. He's got one coming.
Yeah, I want to try that because I got these new chompers, man.
And take off somebody's damn nose like Ming, right?
Yeah, I'll pull a Ming on their ass.
Did you know that Blair was a tough guy or somebody not to really fuck around with?
No, I didn't know that.
Well, now you know. He'll bite off your lip, dude.
There you go.
Okay, guys, let's take a quick time out to talk about our fantastic sponsor, Blue Chew. It is the new year, and it's time for you to have better sex with Blue Chew. And they're putting their money where their mouth is, pal. They're offering you a month for free. The whole process is totally simple. You owe it to yourself to give this a try. You just sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped direct to your door. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready when the opportunity arises. The best part? It's all done online. That means no more visits to the doctor's office, no more awkward, uncomfortable conversations, and no more waiting in line at the pharmacy. Now, look, people ask me all the time, and it's always the same question: does Blue Chew really work? Well, let me tell you, pal, it's time for you to find out for yourself. People are going to be calling you Eagle Scout with the way that you're going to be pitching tents by the time Blue Chew is done with you. The folks at Blue Chew told me they're not going to stop until every man is bricked up like a brick house. That is their mission. They want to get you rock hard in the new year. You know, I said you owe it to yourself. Not only do you owe it to yourself, you also owe it to your partner. You could be missing out on the best sex of your entire life without even knowing about it. Come on, you got to give this a try. They say there is nothing sexier than confidence, and Blue Chew can help give you confidence where it counts. We can all relate to wanting to feel more confident, right? Especially in the bedroom, and Blue Chew's here for you. It's time, guys. Make life easier by getting harder and discover your options at BlueChew.com. We've got a special deal for our listeners. Try your first month of Blue Chew free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast. Well, again, you were working with a combination of Dusty and Blair, Dusty and Magnum, Dusty and Barry, Dusty and Mike Graham. Jake, which pairing would you say was getting the best fan reaction against you and Sullivan?
Oh, Dusty and Barry.
I had a feeling you were going to say that. Those two just kind of work well together, right?
Yeah.
Well, on November 3rd, Mike Graham and Barry Windham wrestled you and Sullivan in a Texas Tornado match. You guys came up on the losing end of this one in the Miami Convention Hall. This might be the first or maybe second time we've mentioned Miami during this run in Florida. It was the home of the Hurricanes and the Dolphins, two really proud championship teams. It's a fun city. At the same time, Miami was also the first stop for Pablo Escobar, bringing millions and millions of dollars worth of cocaine into this country. Jake, what can you tell us about working in Miami in the early 80s?
Well, we worked hard, man. You know, when you worked Miami, you did television that morning. Then you got in a car and drove for 5.5 hours. That's when you wrestled in Miami.
Whoa.
Then after the show, you had a 5.5 hour drive back. So there wasn't a whole lot of partying going on.
So that's what's referred to as a double shot. You've got to do two shows in one day.
Yeah.
What time are you waking up for the first match?
Well, we had to be down on TV at like 10 o'clock in the morning. The night before, we were right there in Tampa, so that was good.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it wasn't a party in territory, to say the least. Not like a lot of others.
Okay, so you were legitimately too damn busy to even think about going out and having a good time.
Well, there was a few times.
Okay, every once in a while.
Yeah.
So you'd wake up at probably 9 if you got to be at TV at 10. Then you've got to travel all the way to Miami, then all the way 5 hours back up. What time are you laying your head on the pillow at night?
Oh, about 4:30.
That is a brutal trip.
Yeah, 4 o'clock. Yeah, it was a tough trip, man. Real tough.
And hard on the body, not just taking the bumps, but then you're sitting in a car.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It all stiff, man. And usually the next day we were in Jacksonville, which was a 3.5 hour trip one way. So, you get in at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, you sleep till 11, then you get up and you go again.
I know that Bill Watts' territory had like a shitload of travel and it could get really uncomfortable. Would you say that the travel was worse in Florida?
No. Bill Watts was the king.
Way worse.
Oh, yeah.
We'll discuss that, I'm sure, here soon. All the travel, all the busyness, though, at the same time, you're getting a great push and you're having a good time. Would you say that this is the most fun you've had in wrestling up to this point?
Up to that point, yeah, it was.
Okay.
I was able to be creative, and being a heel for the first time gave me so much to play with. Oh, my God, I had such a good time.
It's a lot of fun to watch and can kind of see your creativity shining through. Now, before we move off the subject, Jake, I do want to ask this question just because I think it's worth asking given the context of the time period and what was going on in Florida. Did your time in Florida mark your first time ever trying or experimenting with cocaine?
Yeah, it did.
Okay. Do you have any memory of like this first time or anything like that you can share?
We were at a nightclub there in Tampa, and somebody offered it to me, and I said, fuck yeah, why not?
No apprehension?
No, not much.
It was kind of like a big fad in the 80s. It was like everybody was doing it. It's not that big of a deal, right?
Doing it, man. Everybody was dressed up. Disco bullshit.
They weren't playing any Zeppelin or Pink Floyd in these clubs, I take it?
No, unfortunately.
Right out of the gate, you're trying coke for the first time and you're traveling all these crazy miles. Were you ever using it to kind of keep yourself alert on these long trips or long days?
A couple of times. A couple of times, but you don't really want to get into the habit of spending $200 on cocaine when you're only going to make $200 that night.
Ah, okay.
So that kind of nips that shit in the bud.
So if somebody in the car had it, okay, but you're not going to go out of your way and spend that money.
Not very often.
Okay. Well, as for wrestling, how did the crowds and venues in Miami stack up compared to other places you'd work in the state? Was Miami like the hottest town or not so much?
Not so much. It was about a 50%er, I guess.
Okay.
You know,
Which
it was a good town to be in, but still, it wasn't. You didn't get no major payoff.
which town was the hottest in Florida?
Tampa.
Tampa.
Yeah.
Well, we see a modern version of the Texas Tornado match quite frequently now. In AEW, it usually involves the Young Bucks in some way. Jake, can you describe for the audience what a Texas Tornado match was like in 1982 versus how it's used nowadays?
Well, it's all four men in the ring at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And basically you just go until you can't go no more. Get a lot of saves, a lot of false finishes in. But yeah, the Texas Tornado was just another hard night at work.
Do you try to get one pairing of guys on the outside of the ring and one pairing on the inside?
I never went outside the ring. I don't believe in going outside of the ring.
Really?
Yeah. For the simple fact is, if you go outside the ring, everybody can't see you then.
Okay.
Well, you got half the audience that can't see you. So keep it in the ring where everybody can see you.
You're performing more for the live crowd than any television audience, so you want to make sure that one half of the arena isn't being excluded.
That's right.
I gotcha. Okay. See, a lot of us wrestling fans now, we look at it from the way the TV production of nowadays. There's 30 cameras, you see everything no matter what. But back
Yeah.
in these days, that wasn't the case.
Nope.
Well, Jake, our audience has discovered on this show, and they comment online about it pretty frequently, and it's pretty funny that you are not a fan of tag team wrestling. But what about a tag team match under these circumstances? All four guys going at it? Is that a little bit better?
Sucks.
Still sucks. Too much of a clusterfuck.
Absolutely, man. Because you gotta be sure that you're doing something at the right time so you don't interfere with what somebody across the ring is doing.
Oh, I gotcha.
And how are you supposed to read their damn minds?
So they're over there calling again. It's not like nowadays where you guys talk about the whole match over and over again before you go out through the curtain. You're calling it in the ring.
Yep.
And when you're calling it in the ring, you never know what they're fucking calling on the other side, that you might do some conflicting shit.
That's right.
It's making a lot of sense. Well, Jake, something really interesting is about to come up next. As he will tell you, Ric Flair was the last traveling NWA World Champion. And during the month of November, he's going to defend that NWA World's Heavyweight title against you in November 1982. Now, Jake, you and I talked about November 1985, 3 years later, but here in the Florida territory, you're getting the shot. So just like Stu Hart did in Calgary, Rhodes, Sullivan, Eddie Graham, they're giving you the green light to represent Florida against the NWA champion.
Yeah.
The match took place in two parts. First, you're going to win a battle royal to open the show in 9 minutes, and that's going to earn you the number one contendership. You and Flair wrestled in the main event of the evening. It goes about 15 minutes, and you're going to be disqualified. Flair retains the title. Man, Jake, do you remember this match with Ric Flair in 1982?
Not really.
No?
No, I don't, man. Unfortunately.
It's interesting because our research guy, Andrew, reached out to me and was like, holy shit, Jake wrestled Flair during this month that we're going to be discussing. I'm like, no way. And like he and I kind of got talking about it. And I was like, I think back in the day, it was kind of like business as usual. Like, it's just like, oh, okay, cool. I'll wrestle Flair tonight. And then it's on to the next town. Was that kind of the vibe? Like why you you didn't mark this as a special day?
Yeah. It was just another night at the opera, man.
It's interesting because it is an NWA title shot, but again, you're a wily veteran at this point, so it's like, yeah, okay, I'll do whatever you guys need.
Yeah.
Well, it would have been really easy for one of the authority figures there in Florida to choose Dusty or Sullivan or even Barry Windham to go against Flair, but they chose you. Can you talk to us a little bit about getting a spot like this?
Yeah,
What it meant to you?
I don't know why the hell they did it. Guess they were just pulling a rib on me.
Why do you think it would have been like a rib to put you in that position?
Well, I got to work twice.
Battle Royal and then the Nature Boy.
Yeah.
The other thing that makes it really interesting, and it's something that gets pointed out a lot on people's podcasts, is back in the day, the NWA Traveling Champion would face baby faces wherever he went because the local crowd can cheer for the local baby face, and then win, lose, or draw, it elevates the baby face.
Yeah.
As a heel facing Ric Flair, do you feel like it would have done anything for your character or changed the way that the fans perceive you or
Well,
anything
it
like
would if I beat him.
that? So facing him and losing doesn't do much, but you should fucking beat him.
No, a DQ's all right.
It doesn't bury you.
No.
And I guess it makes it seem like you're a hell of a threat in the territory, right?
Yeah.
All right, we got two more topics, and we're wrapping up the first half of November 1982. Yes, listeners, you heard me correctly. November 1982 had so much shit going on. We're going to break it into 2 episodes. As a little bit of a tease, we will get back with part 2 in the coming weeks as the feud between Dusty and Sullivan becomes more and more violent. So that'll be a lot of fun. Jake, Scott McGee famously wrestled in a lost match with Bret Hart that fans have been trying to get their hands on for years. Apparently, people say it's one of the greatest matches that never, made footage or whatever in the WWF. And he worked with you here in Florida in 1982. He's being inserted into this blood feud. 2 matches, both will go to a draw. Man, Scott McGee's kind of become almost like a wrestling urban legend over the years. What can you tell us about working with him in CWF?
Scott was solid, man.
Really?
He was solid.
No shit.
He could go.
Just like as an athlete, he understood the business, or what'd you think?
Yeah, all the above. He's a second generation too.
Is he really?
Yeah. Yeah, his father wrestled.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Good athlete, that's for sure, and he had a hell of a build.
Yep.
Let's wrap up the show and the first half of November by talking about men that we've talked about here numerous times since we started discussing Florida. Barry Windham. This time you and Barry are going to wrestle under a tape fist match rules at the Armory in Tampa. Jake, this stipulation is essentially gone from pro wrestling nowadays. Nobody uses it anymore. What can you tell us about tape fist match, the intent behind it, all that sort of thing?
Get the knife ready.
You're getting color if you're in a tape fist match.
Color if you're in one of these matches.
Both people or one guy?
Both usually.
What did you think of doing a tape fist match?
Oh, it's fine with me, man. It's fine with me.
When you were making your blades, I saw somebody make a gig recently, and they've just got a tiny little sliver sticking out, and they'd wrap the rest of it in athletic tape. Is that essentially how you would do it?
Well, it wasn't a tiny sliver.
You'd leave a good bit of it out?
I'd leave 1/8 of an inch out.
Okay. Now, are you a prick and twist, or are you a cut gash guy?
Cut, gash, twist, all the above.
Whatever makes it come out of there.
Yeah, just keep it going till you get what you want.
Where would you keep it in your wrist tape?
Yeah.
Did you ever see one of those guys who are keeping it in their lip like a chew?
Oh, yeah.
What? Did you ever try that?
Fuck no.
That seems scary, man. Like you might swallow it or something.
I think I did try that once, and I spit it out. That's what happened.
In the middle of it, like before you were supposed to get color?
Yeah.
Did you
right across the fucking ring.
What do? Do you get the ref to go and gather it?
Oh, the referee's the one that grabbed it. And he grabbed it. He goes, "Oh, it's your tooth." Oh, my tooth. Oh, fuck.
That's a good way to kind of fool the live crowd.
Yeah.
When it would go the way it was supposed to, and you're pulling it from your wrist tape and you gig, what do you do? Do you hand it to the ref? Do you throw it outside the ring?
Ref.
Okay. The idea being the ref comes and checks on you, and you just pass it to him that way.
Yeah.
Interesting. And this was an interesting episode. Jake, man, another look back to Florida. It's been the tip of the iceberg, man. There's so much to cover with this incredible run of yours. I'm excited to keep on kicking the can down the road, my friend.
I will tell you this. Usually I tried to gig the referee's hand.
When you'd pass it to him?
Yeah, just for a rib,
Were you successful? Would you get him
Oh,
sometimes?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
I bet they fucking hated taking the
Oh,
gig from you.
yeah, they fucking hated it.
I want to say I saw you do the same thing to one of the Von Erich boys when he was giving you the claw and you're supposed to get color afterwards.
Yeah, cut his hand.
So you would grind your facial hair on people's nipples. You were cutting people's hands with blades. Just a menace out there.
Just having some fun,
You got to break up the monotony some way or another, right?
Yeah.
Well, Jake, thank you, man. Excited to keep on talking about this subject. And folks, stay tuned because we're going to switch over to Brian Blair talking about his time in Florida right now.
Enjoy it.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus D'Angelo, and we are back for the Snake Pit. And we have got a very special guest here today, a guy who was in Florida with Jake, 1982, and got to see all of that stuff that we've been talking about here on the show firsthand. It is Brian Blair, a Florida legend in his own right, and a guy who'd go on to see Jake in the WWF later on too. Mr. Blair, how are you?
D'Angelo, I am fantastic, brother. I am so excited to be on the Snake Pit. I mean, Jake the Snake he is just so many people's heroes, including mine now, because he has just overcome an obstacle that most men can't do. And Jake has done it with shining colors. God bless DDP, my good buddy. And God bless Jake for sobering up and doing what he's done. One of the greatest workers of all time. Jake was innovative. To be on his podcast with you, D'Angelo, is to be in the Snake Pit it's an honor, man. I'm buzzing right now just being here.
Well, the pleasure is all mine. And one thing that we do whenever we have a guest here on the Snake Pit is first thing we ask him about, of course, is Jake. What is your earliest memory of being around Jake Roberts?
Well, I knew Grizzly Smith, Jake's dad. And so I knew Jake through Grizzly first before I even met Jake. And then because I was with Jake my second tour back in Florida. I had like 3 different tours here. And in 1982, because I actually started in 77, and then I went on to Mid-South. I actually went to Kansas City first, but then I went to Mid-South, and Grizzly was the booker there. Grizzly Smith, Jake's father. And so he would talk a lot about his son, and then I would see some different things about Jake in the magazines and stuff. We were more magazines then, back then we didn't have all the technology that we have now. So I knew that just because Grizzly was so intelligent about the business, even though he was a big man, you wouldn't think a big man like Grizzly's like 6'8", 320, 330 pounds. And I mean, a big man. Mm-hmm. And guys that are that big don't have the psychology. I would say Grizzly's like the only guy that I ever knew that was a great big man, that worked the great big man style, that actually had the psychology to teach somebody like Jake or myself or Bret Hart or somebody that, was a technical wrestler. Grizzly was fantastic. So meeting Jake in 82 was a delight. Jake had that certain smile about him, which you've probably seen many times, D'Angelo, that certain smile. And he was just a natural performer. He could be an actor in any Hollywood movie. The guy has got, all the bells and whistles. He's got it from A to Z. He's got the total package. Jake was great. I mean, of course, he was fighting demons back then, kind of just maybe starting. And I used to look at Jake and I said, well, if Jake could only, get about 2 more inches on his arms, and he'd work out hard, and he had a good chest, but he could never. He's so long, it was harder for him to build bigger muscles.
Mhm.
But I used to think, if he could get that body in just a little bit of shape, man, that guy's going to be the world champion. And I could just see it from him right from the beginning. And he was a tremendous worker and a ring general and a half. I mean, I got where I was usually the heel calls the matches. Most of the time, I would either call the matches or we would work together. And I'm sorry, I'm going to turn my phone off here. We would work together, and but when I was with Jake, I just let him call the whole match, and it was great. It was nice because even in 1982, I'm not sure what year Jake started. Um,
74.
74. Okay, so he was when he came in '82. He would have been in 6, 7, 8 years, so he knew what he was doing, and you could tell he was great psychologist.
Now, of course, the thing that Jake is best known for during his time in Florida is joining up with Kevin Sullivan as like a really cutting edge duo at the time, because they had people in Florida legitimately convinced that they were Satan worshipers. What do you remember about this whole angle?
I didn't like it at all. Of course, I'm a Christian, and I've been a Christian for a long time, and um, something about Satan. I don't want any part of Satan, and not that I've been an angel, believe me, but I really didn't like it. But it was getting over. It was getting over like a son of a gun, and it's all about putting butts in the seats, and they were putting butts in the seats. So it is what it is. But I remember. I never liked horror movies, scary movies. I saw The Exorcist one time, and it was the scariest movie I've ever seen in my life. I took my girlfriend home, and I was licking in the back seat all the way back to my apartment. I lived on my own since I was 15, and I've been driving since I was 15. You're not supposed to drive till you're 16 in Florida, but I saw that movie, and I was just looking in my back seat constantly. It was scary. And Abdullah wanted to go see this movie, Abdullah the Butcher, and I get back to Jake, but he wanted to go see this movie called Cannibal Holocaust in Japan, in Tokyo. I said, I don't want to see that, Abby. I said, I don't like horror movies. He kept calling me a sissy, you sissy, you sissy. Come on, come on, come on. So finally, I go to the movie with Abby, Cannibal Holocaust. You got to see that movie. Oh. And if you like something scary, at least it scared me.
It's twisted, yeah.
Oh, it's twisted. And so anyway, about, I don't know, 15 minutes into the movie or so, Abdullah hurls all over the place when they show the girl that's impaled from the bottom through her throat, and there's flies buzzing all over her face and everything. Abdullah all of a sudden throws up all over and hits some of the people in front of them, and you're hearing all this stuff, and wow. So I didn't like the devil thing. No, I didn't, but it got over.
It did get over, but yeah, I'm with you where it's like, I don't know, I think kind of crossing the boundary into religion might be pushing a little bit too far to get heat. However, it was the top storyline during the period. Jake did also mention to me on the podcast, and I've been kind of teasing you with it. I'm not sure if you remember it at all, but he and Jimmy Garvin apparently pulled quite a rib on yourself and Magnum TA. Do you have any memory of this?
There were so many ribs pulled, D'Angelo. You got to kind of give me a hint. But
Sure.
Jimmy Garvin was a great friend too. I love Jimmy. I just talked to Jimmy not too long ago.
Well, apparently you and Magnum had met some girls, and I want to say that they were swimsuit models or something like that, and they were coming to the show that night. And I just mentioned on the episode with Jake what venue you were at, but now it's escaping me. In any case, you guys apparently came to Jimmy and Jake before the match and said, hey, we've got these girls out there, really want to kind of look good if you guys could help us out. And they say, oh, yeah, sure. Well, long story short, they get in the ring with you guys, and of course, they don't want to put you over. There's some sort of like a drop down moment that you and Magnum have at the same time, and they both climb on your backs and act like they're riding you like horses.
They called the double drop down. Oh my gosh, how embarrassing that was. Yes, they called the double drop down and they jumped on our fannies afterwards and pretend like we were in jail. And it was embarrassing as could be, because both of us were amateur wrestlers, legitimate amateur wrestlers, and here they're they're going to outride us and shine us and do that to us in front of our girls. Come on, Jake.
Now, Jake says that he powdered because he knew what was coming, and you guys wound up tuning up Jimmy a little bit.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Oh man, what a great memory. Oh gosh,
Oh, such a
that
funny
was
rib.
yeah. There's too many, and Jake was a good river. Yes, he was. Jimmy was too. I mean, those guys together, what a team.
Yeah, what a tandem is right. My goodness, couple big personalities. Real quick on Florida before we kind of move on. What was it like working with Dusty Rhodes and the Grahams in Florida? I've heard mixed things where some guy, when Dusty came to the WWF years later, 1989, some guys still had heat with Dusty because of the way that they had been booked in either Florida or the Crockett's. Did you have good experiences with Dusty and the Grahams?
I did. Actually, Mike was my business partner before. Unfortunately, he killed himself in 2010, I believe. 2010, 2012. Yeah, I had good experiences, especially with Eddie. Eddie was like a second father to me. I mean, he was great. As I said, I lived on my own since I was 15, and Eddie, after I took all the punishment in the dungeon, really took a liking to me, and so he was super. But um, Dusty, he liked to pull ribs. He changed my mom had called up before my first match, and Buddy Colt. You ever heard of Buddy Colt?
I've heard the name.
Buddy Colt was a tremendous heel, and unfortunately, his career got ended early in a plane crash. And so Buddy lived in the same apartment complexes as my mom did at the time, and myself when I was 14. And so he knew that my mom called me Bieber, which nobody knew about, and I always kayfabed. I didn't want anybody to know that. So, anyway, long story short, my first match comes around, and my mom calls up this guy that at the Sportatorium, Charlie Lay, who then, because she wants to talk to Buddy Colt, because it's going to be my first match, and my mom's afraid, so she gets Buddy on the phone and apparently tells Buddy, hey, don't let them hurt my Bieber, please, Buddy. And so apparently he set her at ease because she was really worried. And so Buddy comes in, Briscoes are there, Dusty's there with his cowboy boots up on the desk. And I'm sure Jake can picture this. Everybody's in this room at 106 North Albany Street and in Tampa. And Buddy goes, hey, listen, guys, we're getting ready to, Pat Patterson and Ivan Koloff are there, and Skip Young and I are going to wrestle Pat and Ivan. And Buddy goes, listen, you guys cannot hurt Bieber. Bieber. Yes, Brian Blair is actually Bieber. That is his real nickname, Bieber. Dusty goes, damn, Beeper, we got to call you Beeper, not Bieber. Yo, Beeper. So Dusty started calling me Beeper. And so the Briscoes called me Beeper too. And, some of the guys call me Bieber, but, B was my real nickname for my siblings because they couldn't say that. But Dusty and I got along good. I mean, I would get perturbed sometimes with the way Florida booking worked, because if you were the booker in Florida, Eddie gave you a lot of reign and they would put themselves on top, even if you had a hot angle. Like Steve Kern had one of the hottest angles in Florida. And a couple of times Dusty put himself, over Steve when Steve was drawing the house, and same thing happened to me when Dutch Mantel was there and other people were there, when I was the Florida heavyweight champion and doing well. And that was the only thing that I didn't, and Dusty kind of set that precedent. in Florida. So, and as far as Mike Graham went, you know, he was really very nice to me. I enjoyed working with him. He wasn't selfish. He had been around by that time, and so we got along fine. Had many tag team matches together.
Now, when you would make the jump to the WWF, which in my notes it is 1984, does that sound correct to you?
No, I was there before.
I know I had seen where you made an appearance in 1983, but consistently working in the WWF looked like 1984.
Yeah, my longest run there.
Okay.
Vince Senior actually sent me to Japan in 1981.
Mm.
So that was my first tour to Japan, and so you know, it's amazing how some of this stuff gets lost in history. There's no way to record all the matches that guys have had, because we go to Singapore, Malaysia, you know, for all these independent tours. And I worked for the IWA, where I was the heavyweight champion for the world heavyweight champion. I'd work with Colonel De Beers, Easy Ed Wiskowski, every weekend. And what a gig that was, you know, while I still had my businesses and still went to Japan. So I never stopped working. You know, I worked every year till 2019, except for when I got osteomyelitis in my spine, and you know, I haven't worked since then. But it was I probably worked too long, but I enjoyed the business so much. I have a saying, you know, you can take the wrestler out of the ring, but you'll never take the ring out of the wrestler.
Absolutely.
You know, we always want to, you know, be. It's just something that's bred in you when you're in the business that long. So it was it was a lot of fun, and a lot of great moments with Jake, not just in Florida but in WWF as well.
Now, when you get to the WWF on a more full-time basis, you're there just as Hulkamania is starting to take off. How would you compare what was going on in Florida with kind of a more blood and guts type presentation to the more cartoonish presentation there in the WWF?
It was a big change. It was a big change. But as you know, Vince was going around stealing all the top talent. And we had done, and I did an angle with Rick Rude, and we were selling out. I mean, we were just selling out. And when I told Mike, now I did have an altercation with Mike, or not an altercation, but a disagreement, and it was my fault. Not probably, it was my fault. We were supposed to wrestle in Fort Myers. I had given him my notice, and he was really pissed about this. You know what? You know, you're going to leave us now, and Vince, da 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 da. I mean, how can you do this? You know, this is where you started. So I said, you know, I got to do what I have to do. So I agreed. Hulkster called me up, and him and Vince were there and said that they wanted to start a tag team division and wanted to put me with Brunzell. So, you know, again, I still wanted to go back as a singles wrestler and work for the Intercontinental title like we had discussed before. But I thought, well, you know, as long as we're going to, I made it clear to Vince. I said, as long as, you know, we're going to get the belts and have a, you know, chance to, you know, be on top of the card, you know, I'm good. Everything was good. So I'm thinking about that, and you know, WWF's really getting hot, and you know, some great guys are going there. A bunch of my great friends, of course, Hulkster, one of my best friends in the whole world. You know, that was the cat's meow. That was the place to go. That was the Super Bowl. I mean, that was it, and the NFL. And so on the way to Fort Myers, I get a flat tire. And I called. We had a list of the towns. We didn't have cell phones, so I had to call Fort Myers, the building, and get a message to Mike, because I went up over to trying to make this short. Went to a gas station, walked to it about a half a mile away. Got to the payphone, gave the lady that answered the phone my phone number at the Fort Myers Arena, and About less than 5 minutes, Mike calls me and said, "Brian, where you at? Where you at? I'm on this. I'm broke down on the side of the road, but I'm getting fixed, Mike. I'm getting the tire fixed," which I was in the process of. And he goes, "Oh, well, I'm going to come get you right now." I said, No, don't do that. I'll be there on time. We're on last, right? Yeah, you're on last. Well, okay. But so he said, please, you can't. He said they're already wrapped around the building. He said there's going to be more people outside than there are inside. I said, okay, Mike. And I just blew it off. Never said anything. Went to New York, and Mike was rightfully so perturbed at me. And that's the only time that I've, never not given my notice and fulfilled it. And it really bothered me for quite a while. Eddie had killed himself Super Bowl Sunday prior to that, a little, months prior to that. And, the rest is kind of history. Mike and I finally made up, and he understood. He actually came into WWF for some shots. I think Steve Kern and Dusty took over the territory. So it was that was the only bump in the road for Mike and I. But then later, we had some land together, and then unfortunately he killed himself, and I had a big battle with his ex-wife, who was not a pleasant person at all. And I won't really go into that, but it was like a 6-year legal battle.
Oh my goodness.
And so anyway, Mike got me back for that.
Well, thank goodness that you and Mike were able to kind of bury the hatchet, before his untimely passing.
Yeah. It was good, because I don't like to have heat with anybody. I enjoy everybody.
I am so thankful for you taking the time today.
D'Angelo, if you don't mind,
Oh yeah,
cheap plug in my book here.
Please.
If you could see it, truth be told.
We can't make it out if you're showing it. The background effect is
yeah. Okay. Well, it's called Truth Be Told. It's available on Amazon, and it's got some great stories. Some of which we brought up, but many of which we haven't. And it's a 5-star rated book. It's a very, very interesting book. If anybody gets my book, Truth Be Told, and doesn't like it, I will give you double your money back. And I'm going to ask you a few questions to make sure you read it. But if you don't like it, I'll give you double your money back.
How about that for an offer, folks? But you better darn sure read it, because he'll quiz you. Now, you had mentioned Cauliflower Alley Club. Is there anything else that you want to talk to us about when it comes to that?
Yeah, we're having our 59th anniversary. You can go to caulifloweralleyclub.org, and you can join for $35 for a year, or $400 for a lifetime membership, and that entitles you to come to the reunion. You get 4 copies of our award-winning newsletter. The event in Vegas, our 59th reunion, is going to be so off the top. I can already tell you Mick Foley is going to be there, honored. We've got a slew of talent that you're going to love to see. Again, go to our website, www.cauliflower, like the vegetable, alley, like Dusty Rhodes used to slept in alleys and ate pork and beans, and club, caulifloweralleyclub.org. And check it out. We'd love to have you as a member. We have lots of wrestlers that are members, but we also allow good people. If you're a fan of wrestling, come to the Cauliflower Alley Club. We're at the Plaza Hotel and Casino in Vegas, right across from Fremont Street. $44 rooms, cheap airline tickets. It's a blast. I promise you will have a good time. Everybody that comes can't wait to come again, because we'll sell out. So please go to the Cauliflower Alley Club. It's one of the best organizations in the world. 100% of the money, well, 99.9, we do have to buy paper, pay an attorney and an accountant, but nobody gets paid. So all the money goes to help the people that entertains you when they fall on difficult financial times.
And very well said. And yeah, folks, go out of your way to at least check out Cauliflower Alley Club. I think that you're going to like being a member. Now, you had also mentioned that you got a new action figure that sold out, but there might be a second opportunity, right?
EpicToys.com. Yes, they sold out January 10th. They got released, sold out January 17th. I talked to Luke, one of the owners, and he said he was so happy. He goes, well, if you don't mind, we're going to do another half run, and we'll have them out soon. So they are supposed to be out by the time you listen to this podcast again. And after that, they will not make any more. EpicToys.com.
Do not miss it. Go to epictoys.com. Keep checking back because you never know when these figures are going to pop back up. Plus, they've got some other really good stuff over there. So go out of your way to see that. You had mentioned that you've also got an appearance coming up here on, was it February 6th?
Yeah, February 6th. I will be working for Michael from High Spots in Charlotte, I believe. Yeah, Charlotte, North Carolina. And I look forward to that. Jimmy will be there. And every time I get with Jimmy, it's a good time. I love Jimmy like a brother, regardless of the heat he had with Vince. I hope Vince looks at that, and our WWE, I should say now, looks at that as water under the bridge and recognizes us for everything we accomplished.
Which was quite a lot. Yeah, you guys were a really great featured act. And man, I told you before we hit record that Jake put over the Killer Bees tag team, and he thought it was a really cool idea. Certainly some tread left on the tire, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I left there when I was still in my prime.
Mm-hmm.
And I really thought, well, if Gold's Gyms fails, then I'm going back to WWE. Well, Gold's Gyms succeeded. I actually got Steve Kern. I started expanding, and I built 4 Gold's Gyms, and I had Steve Kern invest his own money into our most profitable gym, the Tampa Palms gym, and he bought 20% of that for $20,000. And everything in my life's a public. It's open because I've been a politician, an elected politician in one of the largest counties in the United States, and I ran county-wide, which a lot of people don't realize. When you run county-wide in Hillsborough County in Florida, that's like running for governor in 10 other states, because we have over 1,500,000 people here. And, there's 10, 11 other states with less population than that. So it's a difficult task, and I was victorious in that and saved the pub. I've got awards all over for most innovative. Had the most innovative creative program for a county. It's called Senior Zones. When they couldn't afford stoplights, and I just basically made because not that they couldn't afford stoplights, they couldn't put them there because of the synchronization. So, and the traffic was so bad that there were so many accidents. So I created, and by old people's, retirement homes. So I created senior zones, which slowed the traffic down, had flashing lights, big slowdowns written in the pavement. And it was like a school zone on steroids. And they use those now all over the nation. And besides that, I saved the taxpayers, which is on record, over $5 billion in a 4-year period. $5 billion.
Incredible.
Yeah. So, I've done a lot of things in my life, and I will say that wrestling was a great education for that. It taught me a lot. It gave me a lot of time in the car to listen to great tapes, Earl Nightingale, and these motivational speakers, and different business ideas and things. I was really, I love my rock and roll, but I love to listen to educational stuff too. So,
Mr. Blair, I want to thank you again. This was a really fun experience. I loved hearing your stories. And you know what? I think I'm going to make my way out there for the Cauliflower Alley Club. I'd like to meet you in person, shake your hand.
Oh, that'd be great, D'Angelo. You'll meet a lot of other people. It's been such a pleasure to be on the Snake Pit. I only wish Jake was here. I miss seeing Jake all the time, but I need to talk to Jake anyway about something that's happening at the Cauliflower Alley Club that I want him to be a part of. So with that said, thank you. God bless you. God bless your audience. Keep up the great work, D'Angelo. Jake is very lucky to have you.
Thank you, my friend.